Yes, we got Arizona, we got Maryland, we got Nevada, we got Nebraska just came in the house. We got Salem, Oregon. We've got, did I get everybody? I got Washington. We got Oregon. Yes. And Oregon, I don't have snow. I want to be where there's snow. So anybody needing a house guest or wanting somebody to come and cook for you, I will come if you're in snow. Okay, Lisa, you're on it. All right, Chris. All right, I'm coming. I'm coming. Careful what you raise your hand for, my friends.
One day.
You know, once in a while you raise your hand and you have about 90% of what you think is a positive reason to do so, or maybe even 50%. And you raise your hand and you get picked, whether you pick yourself or somebody else picks you, and you move forward. Well, that was me a few years ago. It's me on pretty much a daily basis. At the same time, this adventure in particular was one that I got an invite to travel and to speak. Well, speaking is my native language, and I love speaking as a modality. It is magic. It's education. It's the gift of people's time and attention. I think you all know what I mean by that. As somebody where speaking is my primary modality, I'm always thrilled, always honored to get an invite to go and present, because presenting, speaking is teaching to me. And I'm a teacher through and through, just like Mighty Kenyatta is. And this event took me to Arizona, where I was invited to speak at a LinkedIn local. And perhaps you're on, I think most of you are on LinkedIn. It's a remarkable community. And a couple of years ago, LinkedIn local really took LinkedIn by storm. And they were popping up here and they were popping up there. And I actually applied and I got one here, but I never did anything with it. And I flew to Arizona, get into Phoenix, a great sprawling arena of fabulous people and cactus and lizards and all kinds of things. And I was poised to speak, and I like to fly in a day before, at least a day before, get the lay of the land, get a good night's sleep, perhaps like most of you. Hurley, I know you do a lot of travel. I know that that's one thing that's important for you. And I flew in early, got there in the afternoon, and I was going to meet with my hosts and some other people who I'd started connecting with. None of these people I'd met in person yet. The first place I went was where I was going to speak the next day. So I went and I found this place, and there was somebody who was going to meet me there. So I met that person. And there was somebody else who was going to meet me there. And I didn't know exactly where this person was. And this place that I went was a multi-purpose facility. Some of us, you probably all know what I'm talking about. They have a coffee shop, and they have an open area where you can eat. They might have a little kiosk of food. Maybe there's this office or that office, or there's a public space, whatever. It's a multi-use space. Well, I was looking for somebody. And so I'm looking around and I'm walking around, and oh, I think that's that someone. Thing is, it was the back of their head. Like, I think that's the someone. I hope it is. Otherwise, I'm going to meet a totally new friend. So I walked up, and at this point, if you've ever snuck up on somebody you know you want to meet, you don't want them to turn around. You want it to be a surprise. And so sneaking up, I didn't have to actually sneak, but I'm trying to stay behind so there's no periphery. And I tap this person on the shoulder, and this person turns around like, hey, and we give each other a great big hug. And this person was, of course, Kenyatta Turner. And Kenyatta Turner and I, from that hug to this day, which is going on 2.5 years, she has helped me think about so many things. She's helped me grow as a person. She doesn't know this perhaps, although maybe she can extrapolate. She's helped me grow professionally, because one thing that Kenyatta is truly a superpower genius at, diva as she's called, is being really kind and challenging at the same time. I think that's a magic combination. Kenyatta Turner is our fabulous guest today on the Connecting Jews. Kenyatta, thank you so much for being here. I didn't even have to sneak up on you this time.
Didn't have to sneak up this time, Ginger.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me and telling the story of that. Oh, I'm just like, oh yeah, And then another piece of that story, though, that I'll add to the mix here is when you texted me and you said, hey, I'm coming to Arizona and I'm going to this Brendan Bouchard event, and I was like, what kind of events happening in my city that I don't know about that you're coming from Oregon to come to that I need to be at? Like, what are you talking about? Can I go?
wants to know.
Who wants to know?
Absolutely.
I mean, I was already
Yeah.
reading his book. I was subscribed to it. I didn't even know he had live events at that point. So I just want to thank you, Ginger, for having me here, but also for making that call to me and telling me about that, because that and you coming here for that was a really pivotal moment,
Mm.
like a line drawn in the sand of my career, my whole life at that point. Nothing's ever been the same. So
Oh,
I have you to thank for that, for calling me up saying I'm coming to your town to go to this event, and I'm like, I'm coming with you, and I'm just here we are.
yes. Those kinds of behaviors are always a choice for us. Behavior is what Kenyatta truly has a superpower in. And so she's a guest today for Juice. Kenyatta is clearly a longtime friend, colleague. It's going to be that way forever. She's been warned. She knows this. I've been warned. Same thing. She's going to teach me how to skateboard one of these days.
Yes, I am.
There's a problem. Like I have to get a longboard. So if anybody knows a good source. Anyway, I invited Kenyatta here because she has a really unique take. And that's what I want you all to get today. This show is about what's in it for you, for sure. And the Connecting Juice, the intention is that you get some skills, some tools, some practices from great people who are doing important work. And Kenyatta's work in Behavior Superpowers is what she's going to talk about today. And so I'm going to lead her down the path. And then Kenyatta, before we get to our first question, why don't you go ahead and in the chat, put your link. I mean, I've got it up here anyway, but put your link for how to get a hold of you.
Okay.
I'm a host. If you've been here before, this is gonna be familiar. If this is your first time, I'm so grateful you're here. Please light up the chat. I am a host. I am a teacher who I want you to have these conversations. If there's somebody cool on this call that you want to connect with, please do so. I really want you to do that. That is one thing that without the in-person, we are missing. And as a human connection expert, I want to encourage you to use this as it works for you. I don't, no thunder stealing. And go ahead and connect with cool people because it's happening all the time. I know, Rob, you were on my reboot a couple weeks ago, and I know that you and Dustin had a great connection. He was really excited. And so that was terrific. And I know some of you have connected with other people. Please go ahead and do that. So share what you wish, no expectation other than to have a great time, connect, and take some value away. Kenyatta is described as a coach, an influencer, and a protector. Ooh, so good. Find out about the protection on her website. We're not going to, I'm not going to spoil that one. She's got all kinds of things. Today, we're going to focus on the behavior superpowers. And Kenyatta, one thing that's a hashtag, and I encourage y'all to hashtag away on her, is behavior matters. So tell us a little bit about why you believe behavior matters so much.
Absolutely. This is a fun thing to talk about. And it just reminded me, I'll drop a link in here as well to a little video that I created to answer this question, but you guys get to hear it live here in person. So behavior matters. What I know in my industry and what I practice is that behavior issues that we have in life and in business, let me rephrase that. 87% of issues that happen in life and business are due to behavior. It's how we show up. It's how we do what we would naturally do when we're in a state of stress, fear, frustration, anxiety. How we show up in that moment is our natural hardwired behavior. And it's already ingrained in us at the age of 3, where these traits and these things start happening. It's the hardest thing to change, even though it's not impossible. But depending on how intensified that particular behavior in you is, it's going to dictate how you make decisions, how you communicate, how you process information, how you learn, and how you get results. All of it is literally dictated by your behavior. So that's why I say hashtag behavior matters, because it does. And it's really the starting point for everything. Your learned behavior and your EQ is on top of that. Underneath is the behavior.
So tell me a little bit more, Kenyatta, about you used the word intensity. Such a powerful word. Unpack that a little bit. You said the behavior is related to the intensity of our being. Talk a little bit more about that.
Sure. So when you identify what your behavioral superpower is, that's what we call it, you basically take an exercise that's going to give you some results. I say it's not personal, it's just science. Okay. So with this information, there's 200 different data points that we measure based on the exercise after you take it. And you have scores. And we have a spectrum. So depending on which side of the spectrum you are of a particular trait, let's say take charge versus cooperative as an example. If you have a high score in take charge, that means you have a lower score in cooperative.
Mm.
So the higher your score is in take charge, the higher the level of intensity is in your, in your take charge behavior. And that could be your power, because
Mm.
in a situation where someone needs to take charge, that's probably going to be you, right? Most of the time. However, that can also be your kryptonite, because your power, like a really high intensified take charge trait, overplayed, that can become a struggle. And that can then become a weakness when you need to be more cooperative. It's harder for you to do that. Now, if you have a balance score, let's say you're somewhere in the middle between take charge and cooperative, then that means neither one is more intensified. It just means that you can easily go between both sides,
Mm.
which means you're much more flexible, and you probably would be more accepting of working with those who are the opposite of you.
Interesting. So it got a couple of visuals in my head from this. And any questions you have, go ahead and put them in the chat. And we'll either get to them today or we'll get to them afterwards. The show goes for about 40 minutes. And then obviously jet when you need to jet. You're welcome to stay. It's sometimes called the after party. Questions you have? The visuals, Kenyatta, that you put in my head, well, three things. First of all, power struggle, which we often put together as a phrase. Perfect example of what you're talking about. Is there a struggle, or is there and I hesitate, I won't use the B word. What is the fluctuation? I think of a teeter-totter.
Sure.
In some way. And then I also think when you say you're going back and forth, those sets of silver balls.
Yes.
I think of that. Oh, I'm doing pretty good on that one. There we go.
Yeah.
Power.
You got that down. I can't
transfer the energy, and power is energy, which I know you know well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So
I like that.
So explain what a behavior superpower is, please, my dear.
Sure. So my technology partner, they've done 30 years of research into identifying behavioral traits. And it's behavioral science, really, what it is. We take a look at how people are wired. And here's the magic behind that, and why we call them behavioral superpowers. One, our technology partner doesn't call them behavioral superpowers. They call them like profiles or something, which is boring.
Not a good marketing move right there.
No, not in my opinion. So we call them behavioral superpowers. and I really kind of came up with that name when we were having conversations with students in a class that I teach, right? And I was talking to them about the Avengers. As those of you who may be familiar, the Avengers, superheroes, right? If you think about the Avengers, every one of them has their own power. And when they're in that element, that's what they do best. You send them in to do that job. But they also have their version of kryptonite. They have their version of what it is that they're not so good at, or where you don't want to send them in for a job for. I like to use the Hulk as an analogy. Everybody knows what the Incredible Hulk does, right? Bruce Banner, he gets mean, he gets mad, he turns into the Hulk and he smashes everything. And you send him in to smash when it's time to smash. But when you need him to stop smashing, that's a challenge. You actually have to kind of trick him and like hypnotize him to get him to turn back into, Bruce Banner. But when he learned to control that, when he learned to turn into the Hulk when he needed to, and turn back into Bruce Banner when he needed to, that, my friends, that is the power. When you can control that thing about you, right? So we teach people that of the 10 behavioral superpowers, every one of us is one of them, even though we can have maybe pieces of others, right? But there's 10 behavioral superpowers. One of them is an influencer. That is mine. That's why I coach Influence Protect. That happens to be my style. And there's 10 others. So behavioral superpowers are the style of the 10, right? And then within the 10, there are what I call behavioral fingerprints. So as an example, my mother is an influencer too. She is a take charge, fast-paced influencer. Those are her top two traits. My top two traits are outgoing and fast-paced. Okay, just as an example, right there, even though my mom's hands might look like mine, right? We both got fingers and everything like that. She's got like 5-inch long gold nails on hers, so they look a little bit different. However, our fingerprints are very different, even though our hands look the same. So that's when we start getting into the 200 data points of your behavioral superpower, why there's no two influencers that are alike, because there's too many things that go into that, like life experiences, education, what books you've read, what TV shows you've watched, how you were raised. Those things do play a factor. And it really creates my learned behavior, because she grew up differently than I did, obviously, but we both have those hardwired tendencies to be the influencers that we are. And I can explain to you what influencer means, but the idea that we are one of the 10 behavioral superpowers, but we still have things that are extremely unique between us.
Mm, so good. So good. Thank you. FreedomEmpireConsulting.com is Kenyatta's
Yes.
website. And she has offered me a couple times to take the behavioral superpower. And I will, my friend, I will. Like,
I know you will. I can't wait to find out too.
Oh, yeah. See, that's just it. I think that I'm so glad we're talking about this today, because like, raise your hand or give a signal on the screen if you've ever subjected yourself or been subjected to a test that identifies your traits. You ever had that, right? Like Myers-Briggs, the like all kinds of Clifton Strengths Finders, all kinds of things like that. The struggle I have with that, Kay, is that I know, and Adrienne, I know you know this really well. Adrienne is doing amazing work in our educational system here in Oregon, and in a completely different way. In fact, Kenyatta and Adrienne, you'd probably have a fantastic conversation together.
Wonderful.
Identifiers can be labels. And we don't want to label, because labels are limiters. We don't want to say, oh, Rob is really good with this, and then that's where it stops. Oh, Chris is great at this. You know, whether we're first chair violin or we're known as the flunky, like any kind of label can be very damaging and limiting. So tell me a little bit about how your superpowers, how thinking about your behavioral superpowers, acknowledging them, recognizing them, but not letting them rule your life.
Absolutely.
Letting them help you. Talk a little bit about that, Kenyatta.
Absolutely. So I love that question. So here's a couple things I'll say first. When I speak of in comparison to other personality-based exercises and hours, I'm going to share a very clear difference between the two of them. And this, I'm going to start there for a reason. One, many of the other type of personality-based tests, if you've taken them before, you probably already have figured out that there's a certain way you go about answering the questions that can elicit the type of result that you get. And if you take them multiple times, you can probably figure out how to answer them in such a way that would elicit a certain type of result, meaning you can what we call gamify them. Okay. Because of that, they give you a limited scope of what it's of who you are in some regard, because you can change the answers if you chose to. You can lie if you want to, okay, and try to trick it. Okay, that's why if you Google how to fake personality tests, there's even like 100 people, or I mean, not 100, I don't know how many people are looking up a question like that. Okay, that should tell you something right there. Next, what we do is very different than that. We're measuring an entirely different thing. We're measuring your behavior. We're measuring what is already there, which is what you already know. So whether or not you choose to accept the label that it puts on you when you get your results, and I've done hundreds, okay, hundreds of uncovering sessions with people. And what most people tell me is, oh, so that's why I do that. Okay. Now you can choose to accept it or not. I care not either way. My job is to put the information in front of the person and let them decide if they own it or not. Now, if they do, what I found is not only do they own it, if they want to learn more about it and they take it as is for what it is, they learn to do what I call unleashing their behavioral superpower. Meaning they start walking in the greatness of who they already were, but now they have an understanding of where their baseline is and why and when they show up the way that they do. Now they get to decide if that serves them or not. That's not up to me, but I've done this enough times to know, and I've experienced it to where I decided to build my entire coaching practice around it. And I've decided to teach it and to train it and to help build the behavioral superpowers universe, because I've seen the result. So the label, again, most people, and like 99% of them, and we know what, based on the science, that 91% predictability is what we get out of this. And here's the next piece of the difference between another personality test, and this is really what got me. If you take this exercise, and when you do, you never need to take it again. Now that's
Really?
interesting. Yes. Why? Is because we're not measuring your personality. We're measuring your behavior, okay? Which is already there and it doesn't change very much. So, as an example, who here has children? Raise your hand if you have children. Anyone? Okay, Lisa, I ask you the question. How many children do you have? Two. Okay. How old are they?
18 and 16.
18 and 16. Okay, so they're pretty close. So, can you remember a time when they were young, like say 2, 3, 4 years old, certain things that they did and mannerisms they had at that age that you thought, oh, that's how they do things. And now
Mhm.
they're still doing it that way?
Yes.
Okay, give me an example of one of those things.
My son has a smirk. Whenever he, you've met this child, whenever he's trying to get away with something, if you're not looking at him, and you miss it, you cannot tell he's lying.
Ha!
He
This is
has
hell.
that smirk. And what makes it even more interesting is my brother and my dad had the same smirk.
Ah, very
So
interesting.
kind of a family trait.
Okay, interesting. So now
Yeah,
that's the one child. Is that the 18-year-old or the 16-year-old?
that's 16-year-old.
Okay, so is there something about the 18-year-old that you can think of? Maybe how they make decisions. Maybe are they somebody who likes to keep things tidy, or are they, messy?
She totally overanalyzes everything.
Now, has she always done that, you feel, since she was young even? Okay, and she still does it now.
Yes,
Okay.
it's worse now, but she's always put
Okay.
a lot of thought into before she makes that decision.
Ah, key.
And she really thinks about how it impacts others.
Mm,
And
interesting.
sometimes she makes the decision based on what's best for others rather than herself.
Okay,
It's that empathy.
got it. Thank you
But
so much, Lisa. I
you're
appreciate
welcome.
you sharing that. No, that's perfect. So what she just demonstrated and what she talked about with those children, that's not personality, that's behavior. And it
Mhm.
starts getting wired into children at a young age, around 3, when these things start happening. So what we measure when we take the exercise, and there's someone on this call, Chris knows what his behavioral superpower is. I'd love for him to share his thoughts about that. But what we measure is what we've always kind of done. So you don't need to take, like, your daughter wouldn't need to take the test again. It would show that she's very analytical, and she's probably a community builder based on what you said, but it would measure that now. If she took it when she was 12, it would have the same results as it does now. It only has intensified in her, like you mentioned, but it was always there. Go ahead. Are you got your hand up, Jennifer? What are you doing?
I'm just waiting for you to come to
Oh,
the stop sign. You're good.
oh yeah. You got to do like, stop talking,
This
Kenyatta.
is fascinating. And I'm like,
Okay.
over here,
All
quickly.
right. All right. All right.
I know I'm the host, but oh well. So I really, maybe somebody else's, this is burning a hole in their head too. Maybe that's where my hair went. What is the difference then? How do you differentiate, Kenyatta, between behavior and personality? Please explain that.
So when you take the exercise, it has you do a forced choice triad of how you answer the questions. Okay, it might say, are you this, and this, or this, and this, and then you have to choose if you're most that or least that. And it has you go through this process of answering these questions, whether you most or least in all these different areas. So you always got to leave something out. And it's pretty challenging to do that. And it causes a little bit of frustration and stress in the process of answering the questions. Well, what the science shows is that when you are under that pressure, that stress, and that a little bit of anxiety, it brings to the surface the core of who you are, not your personality traits, like things that like you've learned, to be joyful or something like that. No, it brings to the core of how you make decisions. That's not necessarily your personality. How you process information, how you learn, how you communicate, that's not necessarily your personality. And your personality, quite honestly, you can decide that you want to have a different kind of personality if you wanted to. You know, I have a friend who used to say, "Hey, if you don't think you gotta, if you don't have a, if you don't think you have a good personality," he's like, "Go get one." You know what I mean? Like, you know, go get one. He would say, you know, but your behavior is very different in that, as it's beneath. It's, if you think of an iceberg, what's beneath the water of an iceberg, you don't see that, but that's most of an iceberg, correct? And that's where your behavior lies. Your personality really is your learned behavior. It's how you decide to show up when you think you need to based on the scenarios that's going around you. That
Okay.
a lot of your personality is tied to that. That's why, like a Myers-Briggs, you can go and take that again and answer the questions in a different kind of way and get a different kind of result. This, you can't do that. You can't gamify it, and that's why you don't need to take it again. So what we do is we have, let's say a 12-year-old, about the youngest age, can take the test right now. Okay. They take it when they're 12. We have them take it again when they're 18, because a lot obviously is changing from 12 to 18, even just biologically. And after 18, never need to take it again. And I've had people try to flip around and like go and take it to see, they're like, "Oh, I took it again." And I'm like, "Okay, so what happened?" They're all, "It was the same." And I'm like, "Are you satisfied? Are you satisfied?" And they're like, "Well, yeah, you know, why'd you take it again?" "Well, it was just so true. I just could." Okay, whatever. And I know the styles that normally want to take it again because that's how they process information.
That's so fascinating.
So
Thank you,
hopefully
Kenyatta.
that helps.
Yeah, it does. It feels like one way is like it's subconscious and the other is conscious. The innate is manifesting, so to speak, in the behavior, and the more visceral is in the personality.
Yeah, that's a great way to
Oh,
put it.
fantastic.
So,
Okay.
you're so good, Ginger, at the,
Oh,
figuring it all out.
okay, we take this on the road. We'll take this on the road when we can get on the road. We'll go by skateboard, okay?
Yeah.
Skateboard tour. Wow. Okay. That's a whole different thing to unpack. So I would love you to give us 3 great ways that knowing your behavior superpower connects you to your life. Because I love to ask the guests, here's 3 things. And for the record, for everybody here, these shows are archived on my YouTube channel, so you can go after the fact. Kenyatta is welcome to take a copy and put it on her YouTube channel or wherever she wants that to live, of course. We always have great guests. The next 2 dates are the 18th and the 15th. It's always the 3rd Thursday of the month. So that bought you a few seconds of time. Kenyatta, tell us 3 ways, not that you needed it, 3 ways that knowing your behavior superpower, Adrienne, I'm so glad you're here. Knowing your behavior superpower. Yeah, that's right. Shake your head. Don't know. 3 ways that knowing your behavior superpower help align us and connect us with our life. Number 1.
Number 1 is you stop wondering why you are the way you are. You no longer have to put any energy to that. It's really just identified for you. And if you believe it and you embrace it and absorb it, then you own it and you stop apologizing to anyone, including yourself, for who you are. That's reason number 1.
That is a huge number 1. I love that. Own it. Save the energy for other things.
Mhm.
Really lean into that, as Ms.
Absolutely.
Sandberg would say.
Mhm.
Awesome. Okay. What's a second way that knowing your behavior superpowers helps you align and connect with your life?
Well, once you have owned it and you are embracing it, with self-awareness comes better understanding of other people.
Say that again.
What I say? With self-awareness comes better understanding of other people.
That's so powerful. Unpack that a little bit, Kay.
Yeah. So when you, I'll start with this quote. There's a quote by Veronica Tugleva that says, "To know yourself, you must first sacrifice the illusion that you already do." So let me repeat that. To know yourself, you must first sacrifice the illusion that you already do. So that then opens it up to, okay, wait a minute. I think I know and understand these certain things about myself, but if you're open and truly honest with yourself, you'll realize that you're always learning new things about yourself. You haven't got it all figured out. I don't care how old you are, right? So to be continuously open to the fact that you can always learn new things and process information in a new way is part of understanding yourself, right? So sometimes you got to throw out the window what you think you knew, because sometimes it's what you think you know that gets you in trouble. Okay. And so,
never happened to me.
right. You know, So when you have that self-awareness, with that true self-awareness and acceptance comes not only acceptance of yourself, but you become accepting of other people,
Mm,
because you realize that they're not like you, and that's okay. Right? It's okay to have differences. It's when you are confused about what's going on with you, where you are too busy
mm,
comparing yourself to others and maybe even judging, or, not only oppressing yourself, but you're oppressing others. And a lot goes into a lack of self awareness and acceptance. So the second thing is I can connect on a higher level, a deeper level with other people because I have self awareness of myself.
oh, so good. Okay, so the first one is
Mhm.
save your energy for the good stuff. When you know what your behavioral superpowers are, you can really be your best you. Number two, being aware helps you accept yourself first and then helps accept others, because it's all like we have so much more in common than we will ever have difference. It doesn't matter shape, size, color, make, model, does not matter. Oh, so good, Kenyatta.
So
So
good.
good, everybody. Yes, I love this. All right, and give us a third way that knowing your behavior superpowers helps you align and connect better with your life, Kenyatta.
Sure. So once you have the self awareness and you know your baseline, now you know where you're at. Okay. Now you know what you're really good at and why something feels so good and natural to you.
Mm.
And now you can be very aware of the square peg, round hole scenario.
Ooh.
When you are shoving a square peg into a round hole, it's possible to get it in there. It's not pretty. Okay. It's painful. It's bloody. Okay. It takes a long time, and it's the hard road. Okay. Now, granted, we got to have some hard roads, right? Bill's character, blah, blah, blah. However, finding a round peg to go in that round hole is a lot easier and just makes more sense. Right. So when you know this information, now you know what works really well for you and what might be your potential kryptonite. And because you have the baseline, then you can create what I call situational awareness. Now, I am an outgoing, fast paced influencer. That is my behavioral superpower. I am also extremely abstract, extremely daring, very flexible, very promoting, and I'm focused on results more so than relationships sometimes at a high rate. That's how I'm wired. So now that I know that and I know where my numbers are, my baseline is, there's times when I might be in a situation where this outgoing, fast paced, fast talking, abstract, results focused Kenyatta is not who needs to be showing up in that moment. Why? It's because I'm trying to connect with other people, and not everyone responds. Not to say I need everyone to respond with every single part of me, but if I'm trying to make a connection, there is a bridging that needs to happen. People got to come at each other both together, right? Otherwise, it's repelling. So if I need to have situational awareness to know, you know what, Kenyatta, I think in this moment, you should probably slow down your speech. You should probably soften your tone. You should probably try to be more patient because that's not how you're naturally wired. You need to go do some yoga and meditate and do the things that you know to do that will bring you into a space that might be more appropriate for what it is you're about to do or who you're about to connect with. Right now, if you put me under pressure and stress and all that, that outgoing, fast paced influencer of me is going to start bubbling to the surface. But I think about, I always like to think about Mike Tyson. He bit Evander Holyfield's ear off, those of you who may not know that. And when he was asked why he did it, he said, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Right now, he knew biting off an ear, not a good idea. His learned behavior didn't kick in a moment to say, hey, you shouldn't bite off an ear. He knew better. He chose to surpass that and let what was underneath come out in that moment. So situational awareness is the third reason why knowing your behavioral superpower can affect your life, because in certain situations, your highest power is not the best, answer. Like Hulk shouldn't be in a china shop. Okay. Makes no sense. So he needs to turn back into Bruce Banner before he walks in that china shop. That's situational awareness. And so that's number 3.
This is fantastic, Kenyatta. Then would I extrapolate accurately? I know she'll totally call me on this, is one thing I love about her. Would it be accurate then is what you're sharing with us what to do and how to be aware and how to welcome that.
Mm-hmm.
this is not dumbing it down. This is not changing who you are. This is like we're a dashboard with dials, because we all have varying degrees for varying situations. That's more of what you're saying, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Because I can't not be a fast-paced, outgoing influencer.
Right.
I can't. If you saw my report, you saw how high the scores are. I'm not balanced in any of the numbers. I'm either in or out. It's the way I am. But that doesn't always serve me. Right. So for instance, also knowing what my baseline is and knowing what my kryptonite is means I can get help with areas that I'm not wired well to do. For instance, I'm very flexible. I'm not systematic at all. I don't like systems. I don't like structure. I get bored very quickly. But someone who's extremely systematic, like my business partner, Jeff, like he's all about the columns and rows and he's got it all planned out, in advance. And I'm like, dude, thank God you do, because I don't. Right. So I'm never going to be like him, and I don't need to be. What I need to do is understand where I am, have situational awareness to know when to get help. And that's why I read the 12-week year and I subscribe to all the things that help keep me structured, because it's not natural for me. Right. So again, once you have the awareness, you know what you're working with, and then you know better. So now you can do better.
Oh, Kenyatta, I love it for so many reasons. Is this great or what? Is this good? Getting some good stuff? Yeah, this is great. This is exactly why we're here with the juice. Exactly why we invite great people. It's exactly why, like, John, good to see you. It's like everybody who comes back, I'm super grateful, because I learn just as much as you do. It doesn't matter that I've spent lots of time with Kenyatta. It doesn't matter that you haven't spent any time with her. So I want you to wrap it all up today. And again, we'll stick around till the last question is asked. If you have a question, you have a comment, something like that, to join in the conversation, put anything in the chat, connect with any of these great, fantastic people. Oh, so good to see you. New York just showed up, David. Great to see you. So give us one call to action, Kenyatta. First of all, here's your thinking time. If this is interesting to you, please go ahead and get in touch with her. Kenyatta will definitely share. And if and when there's an opportunity, if you want to work with her, she'll bring it up. In the meantime, she is truly a connector. That's another reason why I invited her, because she understands what it's like to connect and to serve, because that's how she's hardwired. So Kenyatta, give us one call to action that we can all think about, act on today, to better acknowledge where we're at in our lives, to align with what connects us.
Absolutely. So the one call to actions I'm going to put in the chat. It is a link to a little document that I made that is your top 10 super secret hacks to unleashing your behavioral superpower. And it's free, and it's just 10 things that are actionable that you can start doing right now. And whether if you know your superpower or not, it's 10 things you can do to start unlocking it. And so that is going to be the actionable step, is to just read through those and decide if they could help you or not. The next thing I'm going to say, or you asked me for one actionable, that's the one action.
You can give me two.
Oh, okay.
Nobody can say no, stop, Kenyatta. We're going to keep going.
So the second one is to think about this. Whatever situation or scenario that you are in, to just remember that you get to choose. Like, you get to decide how you think and how you act. So regardless of however it is that you're wired, you're going to respond a certain way 91% of the time. However, you get to decide in the moment what's going to be best for that situation. And it's entirely up to you. And the next thing is to also remember that no one else is responsible for that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no one, like, if my quote that I will share with you is, no one's coming to save you. No one. So that would be my parting thought, is that piece, is that you get to absorb all of that and decide how you will use that information. And sometimes it's not pleasant to think about it that way. I've had people say, "Yeah, it sounds kind of harsh," and I'm like, and do you know someone who's coming to save you? Like, tell me who, where? You know what I mean? Send them to my house. You know what I'm saying? So it's just that reality and that ownership, again, and that self-awareness at a really deep level. I think is where it all begins. I quite honestly do. And that
Yeah.
self-fulfilling prophecy, you mentioned that earlier, and I thought it was interesting that you said that, because it's a great segue for me to tell you that I was in this book. We talked about that, Ginger, right? And the book, you had to add a quote. And I will tell you what the quote was that I added in this book that just came out yesterday, just released.
Yes, The Art of Connection. How
The Art-
perfect is that?
Perfect.
She's one of the authors in that
It's
book.
called
That's
The
fantastic.
Art of Connection, 365 Days of Networking Quotes by Entrepreneurs, Business Owners, and Influencers. And it's this big, huge book, okay? I'm going to tell you what my quote was, because it ties in right to what we were just talking about and what you said earlier, Ginger.
And is this a quote that it's from you? Not
My
from
quote.
somebody else?
Yes, my quote.
Excellent.
It is
Good.
my quote. You had to do a quote and a thought that explained it, and then a question. Okay. And that was, so my whole page is just that. But the quote is, your self-fulfilling prophecy can either limit you or liberate you. Which one is it going to be?
Say it again.
Your self-fulfilling prophecy can either limit you or liberate you.
So good.
Which one is it going to be?
Hmm.
Because you're going to make it up. So which one is it going to be? Sometimes our self-fulfilling prophecies put limits right on us. And then that happens and we're like, I knew that was going to happen. Right? Or your self-fulfilling prophecy can actually liberate you. And so when you go, ooh, I knew that was going to happen, then it was something amazing. Right? So that was just my last thought about that.
That is fantastic. And I know, Rob, you gestured to yourself, I think, when you said, no one's coming to save you. The way to turn that around too is like, we get to be in charge.
Mm-hmm.
We're the ones. We're holding our own bar high. We get to be the ones. So save yourself, so to speak. Be the one who puts your own stake in the ground. Put that bar high. Hold it high, my friends. Your lives are amazing. You're all doing important work. Kenyatta is doing this great superpower behavioral magic diva. I want to hear you sing one of these days. She does play she plays the bass among her skateboarding and everything else. So thank you all so much for being here. We're going to stick around for a little while. If you need to jet, happy flying. We're so glad you're here. If you want to stay and ask Kenyatta a question, please do. The next date for the Connecting Juice is the 18th of March. We'll have another great guest. I think I know who it is, but I'll keep you in suspense and let you know who that is. Now that you're subscribed to the Juice, you'll get the notices. And here's the deal. It's like a free subscription, just so you know. If you get notices, there's no charge. And that simply means you get the notifications if you can make it. We love it when you come. Like, this is your live studio audience. This is so great. And if you can't make it, that's totally cool. You don't have to tell me. I love it when people say, I can't make it today, Ginger. That really makes my heart warm. But use it as you want. And I would love it if you told one friend today after, oh my gosh, have you seen the Juice yet? Have you been part of this? And if you would invite them, I'd be really appreciative of that. So
Love that.
Kenyatta, thank you so much for being here. If you have a question, go ahead and unmute yourself. And if you're in a quiet place anyway, you can unmute yourself. You got whatever's going on in the background. And go ahead and ask Kenyatta a question if you've got one.
And hey, Ginger, I would like to ask if someone wants to ask a question, go ahead, please. But there's someone on the call who happens to know what their behavioral superpower is. And I think that person knows who they are. Chris, I would love you to unmute yourself and come on camera and share about your superpower and what you think about it. I want to know.
All righty. Sorry, just bouncing around, then I'll come back inside the closet, but that's an inside joke. Kenyatta will get that one too. I'll explain that in a little bit details. Well, let me get right here. It's a lot better inside the closet than it is outside. It's snowing again. It started snowing again. That's all you need to know, people in Phoenix, but somebody else is in Oregon, and everybody else I didn't get your locale. But it's snowing again. Okay. So when I met Kenyatta, we had an interesting conversation because we go to find out we're both similar, same behavioral superpowers. So guess what? We are able to connect, right? And she ended up proving that to me. It's like, oh, why are we connecting? Well, she had me take the behavioral superpowers, assessment, or I wouldn't want to call it a test, but it was self-discovery. And I don't have exactly all my report, but just say we're like personalities. So you wonder why we kind of hit it off and got along. It was validated, through the science and the data. I could not dispute it. I've, like others, maybe taken, the infamous Myers-Briggs and kind of put myself underneath a microscope for a couple of years and like, who am I? Why am I doing these things like that I do, from strength finders, like I said, to Myers-Briggs and all that, journey of self-discovery. But it was compelling. And then also to see Kenyatta's journey with herself and the way she's helped others really help come into their own. I call her a friend, an advocate, an advisor, and yeah, I would just thumbs up to her on that side. But yeah, if those on the call more know Ginger than they know Kenyatta, I encourage you to get to know Kenyatta. If not, beyond her awesomeness, she's just simply an awesome individual.
Yes, she is.
So.
Excellent. Thank you,
thanks,
Chris.
Chris.
Checks in the mail, right? Okay.
Exactly.
Or in the PayPal. Sorry. Or in the link tree, or the whatever payment gateway you want to send it to me through.
I'll accept all forms.
Exactly.
Indeed. Anybody else have a thought or a question? Feel free to simply unmute yourself and participate. So that's what we're here for. It's a wide open forum if you are so inclined.
Can you expound on the protect?
Yes, I can. So the protect, I like to say I help my clients to build and shield their freedom empires. Freedom empire really is a state of mind and how we go about doing things and building our families, our careers, our legacies, and our mindset, whatever that is. I help them shield the freedom empire by offering legal services and identity theft protection for families and business owners through a company called Legal Shield. I'm an associate with them, and I have been for the last 7 years. And I have lots of clients that use the services for their businesses and families. That's the protect piece. So I say, if you're going to build a freedom empire, you need to protect that freedom empire as well.
She's a good one to have on your team too. If you're going to battle, Rob, I'm telling you, Kenyatta's the one you want. So, indeed. Well, thank you again, everybody, for being here. Kenyatta, thank you so much. How about some thumbs up, some jazz hands, some whatever for Kenyatta.
Thank you.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you, everybody, for making time today. Stay warm, stay healthy. Let me know when I can help you with human connection, working with great teams, people, leaders, helping them really align with what makes them hum, makes you hum, and live the life you really want to live, because everything's possible with human connection, my friends. Take good care. We'll see you next month.